Hello, late night coders, and welcome back. I have another exciting topic for us today, and so basically, what I will cover is a few ways to actively detect device orientation in your code and react to it properly. I will also show you my portfolio website as a live example where I only allow landscape mode because the website content doesn't really look pretty in a portrait mode, especially on a narrow phone screen. Okay, before we get started, if you're new to this channel, please make sure to hit the subscribe button below and turn the notifications on. That way you'll be the first to know when I publish new videos. Okay, so first thing we need to do is to go to the Webpack boilerplate GitHub repo on my basically GitHub page and download the code for this, basically the starter package. Download the zip file or clone it, and then you'll unzip it and you can open it in the IDE of your choice. I have VS Code and that's what I'm using here. I'll put a link to this starter package basically, and you can go and grab it. Also, when you open it in your VS Code or any IDE, you can see a lot of files and folders here. I have already made a video about this boilerplate, and you basically can go to the description of this video and I'm gonna leave a link there, or you'll see some pop-ups on the top right corner of this video, and then you can access that other video using those pop-ups also. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is to npm install to make sure that all the packages that we have are installed in our directory, in our project folder. So you can see we have all the dev dependencies and dependencies here, and once that's done, what we want to do is to start our server. And as you can see here, for development environment, for development we are using npm start. So I'm going to do npm start, and that's basically what we need to do, and then go to localhost 3000 to access the home page. If I go there, right here, so this is our home page. So what we are gonna do today is basically checking the device orientation, and it doesn't really make sense for desktop and laptop screens because most of them are already landscape, and also we're just trying to check the like actively check the orientation change so that we make proper changes to our like view or whatever we want to do. And in a desktop or a laptop, you don't like turn your device to like go from landscape to portrait or anything like that. So we're gonna focus like on phones and tablets here. That's why I have it in the phone mode. Okay, the first thing we're gonna do is to do this check using CSS, which is actually very simple. By the way, what I'm gonna do is display or not display this welcome home based on the orientation of the device. So if it's like landscape, I won't show it. If it's portrait, I'll show it, this welcome home text here, just for the purpose of this video. Obviously in real life, like your real projects, you have more use cases for this based on the project that you're working on. So my home CSS SCSS file is under my styles pages, and then home SCSS, and this is my home welcome class. If I go to my view, which is my home.pog here, there it's my welcome home text, and that home welcome is the class for that. So what I'm gonna do is actually very simple, and I'm gonna use media queries to basically show or not show this text depending on the orientation of the device. So let's see, I just copied the snippet of code here. If you go to the media queries on the developer.mozilla.org, you will basically see a few examples on their website under the using media queries. I'll put a link to this also in the description of this video. If you scroll down, you see here, for example, you can detect the orientation of the device, whether it's landscape, portrait, and also we are looking at the devices with screen. So like, for example, like printers we don't care about, so that's why we have a screen here, and that's exactly what I have here: portrait, orientation. And when it's portrait, I don't want to display it, so I put the display to none. And when it is landscape, I display block, so I want to see that. So if I save this and go back to my local host, you can see now it's portrait, and we said we don't want to display it on portrait. Then if I switch to landscape, I have it. Portrait, I don't have it. Landscape, you can see that like as I switch back and forth, it actually works. Now, one thing I want to do in this video is also to test this process on a real phone, because later on we'll see we will have a problem on real like phones. The another method that I will be explaining later on. So what we need to do to access this local host on my Mac here is to go to, from other like devices on my network, is to go to the app.js file, and in my port, basically app listen section, all I need to do is to add 0, 0, 0, 0, and this will basically provide access to the local host on my my laptop, MacBook, from other devices on my home Wi-Fi. And if I want to access my basically Wi-Fi, my local host from my phone, all I need to do is to check the IP address of my laptop. And to do that, like for MacBook, you need to go to system preferences, and from there you go to network, and then you can see the IP address of your MacBook. And then for Windows, it's also easy, you can just Google it. I'm sure there are like so many posts that you can, that will show you how to get your IP address on your Windows machine. So I have my IP address here. I'm gonna share my phone. This is my actual phone here. So let's see what happens. I'm going to go to 192, and that's basically my IP address, colon 3000. And once I go there, you can see that it's loading. Okay, so you can see that in portrait mode, I don't have the text. If I go to landscape, I have the text. So the CSS code works now, and we also check that on our phone. It works well, and that's the first thing we wanted to do this on using CSS. And so this is obviously a good way, a simple way to do it if that's all you need. But if again you have some like animations or something that you have to do in JavaScript, I'm just gonna comment this back to the way it was. And so my JavaScript files are under app folder. For the home page, I have everything under home folder here, index.js. So again, if you don't know what these folders and files are, go check out the video that I have on the Webpack boilerplate. I explain everything there. Okay, so in the JavaScript file, obviously what we want to do is to make sure that we are constantly listening to this change of orientation. And as I just said it, we want to have an event listener, for example, to do this for us. And I looked up and I found that like there is this orientation on change event that we can use, but this is deprecated. So I think we can use this screen orientation, and for that all we need to do is basically add an event listener in our create function in my index.js file, and exactly like you saw it. And then I'm gonna actually define that callback function here. So that callback function, we're gonna define it here. So basically the idea is to use the height and width of the screen to detect whether it's portrait or landscape. I played with different basically properties that we have, including window, inner height, and inner width. And I figured that the best thing that we should do and we can do is use the screen avail height and screen avail width to check for landscape and portrait. If our height is bigger than width, obviously it's portrait, and otherwise it's landscape. So let's see. Okay, let's check it out, see if it works. If I go back to localhost, right now we are in landscape mode. Keep in mind that when I loaded the page for the first time, that didn't actually do anything, the event listener, because it listens to the change, and when you load it, nothing has changed, so there is nothing there. When I change the orientation, we have an error message here. Oh, I need to actually define this home welcome here. I forgot. So that is our using query selector. I'm gonna define my home welcome, and then I'm gonna change the display whether either to none or to block. Either I want to display it or not. So let's do it again. We are in portrait mode. If we go to landscape, we see landscape, portrait, landscape, portrait. So it's working, but the problem is that at the beginning, when we load the page, even if we are in portrait, it's gonna show that message to us, and that's not what show that note to us, and that's not what we want. So what we can do here is actually call this function once before the whole thing is before we are adding event listener. And then what this does is once we load the page, it actually checks the orientation and then does what it's supposed to do at the load time too. So here you can see that we did go through that function, the on orientation change function, and we see that's portrait, and then now it works perfectly fine. Okay, this seems to be a good solution, but then as I mentioned, I want to test everything on an actual device too. So let's go to my mobile, which I'm showing, my phone, which I'm showing you here. If we reload the page here, it's portrait. Obviously we don't want to see the note and we don't see it. When I go to landscape, oops, we don't see the note here either. So I'm using Safari on my iPhone and apparently it's not working. So that made me think, and what I found out is that if we go to the screen orientation unchange basically method on the developer mozilla.org, you can see that it does not support Safari on iOS. And that's a big deal for us because obviously a lot of people have iPhones and they use the default browser, which is Safari, to check out our any web page. So this is not good. This is not good. We don't want to not provide this feature to them. So a lot of people, a lot of users are not gonna actually experience what we want them to experience. So as it turns out, this was not a good thing to do, so I am going to comment this out. And what I found out is that actually we can do exactly similar to what we did in our CSS file here in JavaScript too. And for that, we can use window.matchMedia. What it does is that, for example, you will define a media query, and then you will make sure if the media query is matched, then you do whatever you want to do. If it's not matched, it's not gonna do what you wanted it to do. So if I go back here to my index.js file, what I'm gonna do is actually I am going to define a new event listener, and that basically is a media query event listener. You can listen to the media query changes, and for that I am going to define another function, callback function here. Okay, so let's see what this function is. So first of all, again, I want to call it at load time, because if I don't call it, then it's just gonna listen to the changes at the load time. We're not gonna see what we want to see. So once we load the page, we're gonna call this page and we're gonna define this media query. And what it is going to check if our screen and if we are on a device with screen and also the orientation is portrait, exactly what we did here in the CSS file. And if it matches, you can use this media query.matches. I think it is under the Mozilla website. I'll put a link for that also. That means that we are on a screen and our orientation is portrait. If it doesn't match, then obviously we are not on a portrait screen. And if I save this and go back to my local host here, excellent. This is portrait. We don't see the text. Once I change it to landscape, we see that text. So the test here on my browser is working. Let's check my phone now. And again, I'm going to refresh this page. Now if I go to landscape mode, there you go. You do see the welcome home as well. Portrait, we don't see it. Landscape, we see it. So that's what we wanted to do, and now we have that basically, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted to do. So yeah, in this video I showed you how you can check the device orientation, if it's portrait or if it's landscape, and then do what you want to do based on that. I also want to show you an example, which is my portfolio website. So this is my portfolio website, and because I have things in there that really don't look good in portrait mode, I want all users to actually view the website in landscape mode. So if you go to my website on your phone in portrait mode, you're just gonna see a simple message that's just like this: the website can only be viewed in landscape mode. And when I switch to landscape, I have this animation that basically it's a transition, and I wanted to do that. So in order to be able to do that, I had to use this the JavaScript method that I explained here, because with CSS I would totally miss on this animation, and it would just seem like I like if I go back, there is an entrance animation. You see like the text entering without the JavaScript code. Just with CSS I couldn't see that entrance animation. So this is just an example, especially like if I go to my about page, this is something that I really wanted it to be in landscape mode, because if it's in portrait, really the text would cover the like this earth here, and I wouldn't then the users wouldn't have the experience that I wanted them to have. So yeah, that's also a real life experience. I will post this final code on my GitHub, and then I'll put a link in the description of this video. If you find this video useful, make sure to like the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. And if you have any questions, or if you see any problems with what I've shown you, please make sure to leave a comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Alright, thanks a lot guys, and I'll see you in the next video.